you have an old pair that's made in USA, go feel it and go feel the fabric, and then go feel the fabric on a newer pair and tell me that they're the same, because they're not.
You're buying the heritage, you're buying the history.
Oh, I don't know how much shade I want to throw at Unsound Effects.
Slowly over time, like especially the Carhartt jackets, the first time we posted one, it got like 10,000 likes, and I was like, what the? It's not really about like what you do buy, it's more about what you don't buy.
Are Levi's bad?
How many things do you use on a regular basis that are at least 40 years old? Most of my audience is half that age. Everything, in fact, falls apart. Our shoes, our cars, some of our computers are designed with planned obsolescence. I guess I should pick this up. Oh my God. The warranty on my car is expired. We live in a time of prosperous material wealth, and more than not, the things that we use and wear every day are relatively new. But vintage Levi's though, there are few things, let alone garments, that stand the test of time like a pair of 501s. Both in terms of fashion trends and literal durability. And the recent obsession with vintage Levi's has reached a new high on Instagram and fashion social media in general. Zoomers are wearing jeans that their parents literally could have worn. And new reseller accounts are springing up every day. And while the 501 has firmly solidified its status in the world of fashion, with many designers literally modeling pants off of that silhouette, it's a garment in design with few, if any, peers in terms of influence, its relevance in Western culture, its massive popularity. Vintage Levi's might be one of the most important garments. What if we don't all get a chance to experience them? Could they disappear? My argument in this video is simple. The vintage Levi, specifically the 501, is one of, if not the most influential garment in the world. The way that this was made, the way that this looked, transformed Western culture and especially fashion. But it is disappearing. And in some ways, this new trend is kind of overheating the process of us losing these jeans, potentially. What I set out to do was to get my hands on some of these vintage Levi's and do some investigating, speaking to a lot of vintage resellers and asking what they do. How do they identify their Levi's? What their process is. In fact, there are so many Japanese brands that exist simply to replicate the 501. And that's, I mean, barely an exaggeration. The kind of cult of this jean is significant. And that's why, sure, you can go and buy a pair of 501s, but you're not going to be able to get your hands on truly authentic pairs like this. Let's take a look at what I got here. First one, I think these are from the 80s. We've got a pair of orange tab. Now, the orange tab were quote-unquote the more fashion-forward Levi's. And the idea was that these would come in different fits, like bootcut and flared. And these pair, I believe, have a kind of flare. Garbage. This one is a very special pair. Jack from Fieldhouse is lending me. This is a selvage pair of Levi's. I think these are from the 80s or 70s. They have really cool repairs throughout, and you can feel in hand how the denim weight is obviously heavier. Clearly, we can see that's a selvage denim. This last one is from the 70s, I'm almost certain, and similarly, we see that natural fading, but what's something you can't see, so you'll have to take my word for it, is these have been worn so much that they are extremely soft to the touch. It's a really cool thing, but it goes to show how much these actually were worn. Truth be told, when I started this video, I didn't really know what I wanted to say. I saw young people wearing jeans twice their age. So in order to kind of understand the machinations of what's going on, I wanted to dive further. And I started by talking with Lucas and Day, two other YouTubers who I think would potentially know more about the subject.
And that Americana vintage look has been like rising a lot, like Capital Bisphone.
Got it, ma'am.
And I think like Levi's were almost like the go-to, where it's like, okay, we're gonna get like these sustainable base pants that are like gonna go with my outfits, like trying to build outfits.
It's affordable. It's affordable, beautiful pant models, infinite models. It's hard to tell outside myself and like outside of this community why it's booming so hard, because I feel like when I started getting into Levi's, helmet length painter denim was like it. Like that was like what was exploding right then in designer, but people couldn't afford it.
I think now, like 5 years ago, everyone's about the skinnies, and then everyone's about the baggy pants, and now everyone's about the flares, and then people are about the straight leg. And obviously, like, the best straight leg that I guess anyone can get their hands on is a pair of Levi's 501. So I think it's just like a result of that. Like, not many brands do the straight leg correct, besides like, I guess, old helmet jeans, but those aren't as accessible as like a pair of Levi's.
Sure, you might be watching this and saying, Levi's have always been popular, vintage Levi's have always had popularity, but clearly there is something new happening online, and it's these resellers who are moving the needle in a lot of ways.
Obviously, you could have a pair of helmet laying painters, but I would personally say a painter pair of Levi's 501s would be better. So I can show you. I actually have like two pairs. I sold off my pair of Biggies actually at my event.
Big E is a reference to the little red tab on the back of every pair of Levi's jeans. Before 1971, that E was capitalized, and this phrase among resellers popped up. It's Big E. When you find a pair of jeans like this, a pair of Levi's, that is usually an indication that they are at least 50 years old and generally very rare.
I didn't really want to let them go, so I had them at like 600, and then like a dude just came and bought them because I didn't want to let them go because I can fit into them, but they're too short. It kind of sucks, but I'm not going to turn down $600.
$600 for a pair of jeans.
The subject of price came up a lot while I was talking to these resellers. It's up to their discretion in terms of how much they're going to sell them for, and of course, this depends on how rare the pair actually is.
I usually price mine between like 80 to 100, probably a bit more than 100 if like it has really good wear or just something that you like, a rare color like a brown or a green. Like, it's no secret that you can find pairs for like 20 to 40 bucks on like eBay. Yeah. But I think with the vintage accounts, like what like our job is to like go through that and do the work for you and like pick out all the good ones that you don't have to sift through.
There is no definitive answer of how much a certain vintage Levi's pair is worth. But the question of, do vintage resellers perform the service of providing a commodity, or do they provide the service of curation, came up once or twice. Alex of Old Clothes Are Cool seems to have kind of firm beliefs about how much these vintage Levi's should be worth.
Yeah, like I said, I think that like 45, basically anything under what you would buy a new pair of Levi's for, that's what you should pay for a non-red line 80s pair and newer. That's what I think they're, because they were like mass produced, and even red lines are mass produced. It's just, I think that their red lines are worth the like 120 to 200.
And when it comes to the question of commodity versus curation, Unsound Rags seems to come up with relative frequency. In fact, almost every vintage reseller I spoke to mentioned Unsound Rags. To some extent, this makes sense. They're one of the most popular accounts in this space, and they've done a lot in terms of kind of establishing these vintage Levi's and their relationship to maybe other aesthetics, especially high fashion aesthetics.
Yeah, I think that I think they do a really good job of like their like marketing, and like their pictures and their presentation is so good And just my personal opinion is that's more what you're paying for than like the individual like value of the piece. And you're kind of paying for their branding, which I do think that they do like a way better job of than anybody else.
My question is there a brand tax with vintage Levi's sold by Unsound Rags? To what extent do you think like your customer is buying Unsound Rags and vintage Levi's?
I hear this like all the time, and even just on other vintage pages that their fill in the blank product is taxed. Mm-hmm. But it's just like, it's coming from a place where I think they're comparing it to their local thrift shop, flea market, Goodwill bins. What like a store does, like not just our store, is we do all the groundwork for it. So we do our best to find the best of every single pair of Levi's and then bring it to one website where you can just easily browse it and then just pick your favorite. And obviously we have like a whole team that's like researching everything, taking proper measurements, photographing it, transporting it from different locations to shoot them. And we have like someone editing here all day. So, and managing the stock and keeping like, when we have like 80 pairs of black Levi's and we have to ship the correct one, like it's like, it gets difficult.
Get it right. Yeah. Going over the interviews, going over some of my clips, I think the takeaway that I have is this. People want to have a piece of this legacy, of the history that vintage Levi's have had. They want to embody that and put it into their wardrobe. And in a lot of ways, that is currently inaccessible from brand new Levi's. They are not made in the US, they're not made to the same quality. And the vintage element of it does play a part. People are intrigued by the stories that are in these jeans. They want the fades and the tears and the wear. They want to have a little piece of this action before it's gone. Because eventually it will be gone. Dry rot will destroy these garments. They will become inaccessible, and perhaps it's happening faster because of the trendiness of it right now. I don't think they're going to disappear overnight, and I don't think that there's a mad rush to collect every single vintage pair of Levi's. But I think now is a good time to buy in. Now is a good time to find a pair and hold on to it, to enjoy it. Because as much as we will have access to all those other Japanese or salvage brands, they're all a replication in some ways or another of the original Levi's. And the original Levi's, I think in a lot of people's minds, are the ones that were made in the US, that were made of the heavier denim, that are the Levi's that kind of created the legend in the first place. And a lot of that is pushing this trend right now.
My perception of it is, I think along with COVID, you have people being much more thoughtful about their purchases. Mm-hmm. Because, you know, they might have less income coming in, and so they may not want to be spending as much money on the trendy stuff, but they want to spend their money on more timeless stuff. Because I've found that that's where I'm shifting to. Totally. Is I want to have more of like a timeless wardrobe rather than one that I'm going to have to flip in 6 months because I know that all these new trends are coming. And I think Levi's, especially just jeans in general, it's always going to be timeless. I mean, because they have been. I mean, look, have jeans ever really not been in style? No.
And that is the long and short of it. I encourage you guys to check out Lucas and Day's kind of tangent Levi's videos. This will probably be in one big playlist. But check them out because those two are also making videos. Either way, I'll catch you later. And now, Christian's moments of external validation.
And I love your channel. I really do.
That's awesome.
I think Trevor sent me your videos a few times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Trevor.
No, we see the effort. I respect it.
tune in next time to see who else Christian might be able to eke a compliment out of that he admires. Okay, this is the real end of the video. One thing, I spent way too much time interviewing these people, and the video itself is kind of all over the place. So I hope you guys appreciate it and give it a jillion views, because otherwise, lower effort videos in the future. Anyway, guys, this is the real ending. Latro.